Welcome to this 365 Freedom Strategy session. Today we're breaking down the mechanics of personal power and why your brand's biggest bottleneck is your need for external permission.
Right, and it's a massive bottleneck.
Oh, it's huge. Think about, the smartest founder you know. The one with the airtight funnel, the flooded pipeline, and the absolute genius product.
We all know at least one.
Exactly. Now realize that founder probably spent 45 minutes this morning staring at a draft email, completely terrified to hit send.
It's like sweating over it.
Yeah, because they were worried a competitor with half their revenue might think it was, too aggressive.
Which is wild when you actually say it out loud.
It is.
Yeah.
So today, we are dissecting that exact paralysis. We're stepping into the role of your internal strategic partners, and we're speaking directly to you, the founder, the builder, the person who is actually in the arena.
The one doing the work.
Right. Our mission is to analyze a fatal flaw that consistently cripples even the most highly skilled entrepreneurs, and that is the surrender of personal power to the crowd.
It's a very precise, very measurable breakdown in operations. And the scary part, it is happening quietly in the background of your business every single day.
Every day.
It's happening right now, actually. We are going to dissect the specific mechanisms of what we call the permission trap.
The permission trap, I like
Yeah,
that.
because this is the core reason why you might be hesitating at this exact moment, even if you have the correct strategy.
Even if you have the leads.
Exactly. You have the leads, you have the capital to move forward, but you're frozen. We are looking at the psychological infrastructure of your decision-making today.
So it's about making a transition, right?
Yes, permanently transitioning from being a passive spectator of your own life to operating as the active commander of your business.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the diagnosis here is fascinating, and it really requires us to look at the raw mechanics of hesitation.
It's not just fear, it's mechanical.
Right. We're looking at this concept of the permission trap. We have an example from the strategy materials of a student who has absolutely everything they need. I mean, the operational reality is flawless.
Right, the strategy is dialed in.
The ad spend is optimized. The Stripe account is connected and ready to process payments.
All systems go.
All systems go. Yet they continue to hesitate on every major move. Every campaign launch is delayed.
Every new product announcement is heavily sanitized.
Yes, sanitized. Every piece of definitive messaging is stalled at the 1-yard line. So the question is, why does the machinery grind to a halt when the light is so clearly green?
Because what we are observing here isn't a lack of knowledge, and it certainly isn't a lack of resources. What it actually is, it's a massive power leak.
A power leak.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is the psychological mechanism at play. It actually has roots in our evolutionary biology.
Oh, really? Evolution.
Yeah, think about it. When an entrepreneur is stalling, despite having all the operational green lights, they are mentally asking for permission.
And who?
From the tribe. They are waiting for the tribe to nod in agreement. Because, tens of thousands of years ago, if you made a move that the tribe disapproved of, you were exiled.
And exile meant death.
Exactly. Exile meant you starved. So the modern brain, specifically the amygdala, hasn't entirely updated its software.
It's running on an old operating system.
Basically, yes. It still interprets a negative comment on a pricing change or a critical email from a peer as an absolute existential threat.
So a bad comment on LinkedIn feels like a saber-toothed tiger.
Literally. To your nervous system, yes. So the founder seeks validation from a demographic that is entirely unqualified to give it.
Wow.
They choose to make decisions based on what feels safe for the crowd rather than making choices that actually align with their core vision and their strategic objectives.
Okay, I see. So we are dealing with an archaic survival mechanism that is actively sabotaging modern business execution.
Actively.
It reminds me of it. It's like a high-performance engine running with a cracked fuel line.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, because you have the fuel, which are your leads, and you have this massive V8 engine, which is your strategy.
Yeah.
But the energy is bleeding out into the ether before it even hits the wheels. You're losing all that power to hesitation. It's like a CEO insisting on putting every single executive decision to a public shareholder vote.
The nightmare scenario.
Imagine running a multinational corporation, but before you launch a new division or even decide what color to paint the break room, you force a democratic vote among people who don't even work there.
People walking down the street.
Yes. You have the authority, you have the data, but you just refuse to execute without a consensus. You are just bleeding out your executive power into the ether.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the mechanical failure happening here. It's the absolute absurdity of democratic input on dictatorial execution.
Dictatorial execution. I love that phrasing.
Well, a business isn't a democracy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to calculate the compound cost of these daily power leaks.
Because it's not a one-time thing.
No, it's not just a momentary emotional hesitation. Think about the tangible business metrics affected by waiting.
The actual numbers.
Right. In business, momentum is a measurable asset.
Absolutely.
When you delay a launch by 3 weeks because you are, I don't know, wordsmithing a landing page to avoid offending an imaginary critic, you aren't just losing 3 weeks of revenue.
You're losing so much more.
Look at the ripple effect. Your customer acquisition cost rises because you missed a prime market window.
Yep.
You lose the compounded data you would have gathered from user behavior. You miss the iterations you could have made based on actual market feedback.
And worst of all, you surrender market share to a competitor who simply decided to move without asking for permission.
Exactly. They just went for it.
The compounding math on that is terrifying. Because, you don't get an invoice at the end of the month for time lost, hesitation.
That would be helpful if you did.
It would, but you don't. So it's incredibly easy to ignore. You just see slightly lower margins and slightly slower growth, and you blame the algorithm.
Always blaming the algorithm.
Always.
Yeah.
But recognizing that power leak leaves us with a critical problem. How does this actually manifest in the day-to-day operations of a founder?
That's the real question.
Because I doubt it looks like a founder sitting at their desk, visibly shaking with fear.
No, of course not.
Usually it masquerades as something entirely different, right?
It masquerades as diligence.
Uh-huh.
It masquerades as optimizing. This brings us directly to the profile of the validation-seeking founder.
Right, from the materials.
Yes. We have this micro story about a founder who is undeniably highly skilled. I mean, they know their industry inside and out.
A true expert.
But they were stuck in this chronic waiting mindset. And the physical manifestation of this was checking their phone every 5 minutes.
The doom scroll.
The doom scroll, but for approval. They were constantly refreshing feeds, looking for validation in the form of likes, comments, or just subtle nods of approval from people who, frankly, do not pay their bills.
That's harsh but true.
They were hunting for dopamine hits disguised as business data.
Disguised as data. That's so common.
They had completely outsourced their confidence to the court of public opinion.
Okay, wait. I have to challenge this for a second.
Go for it.
Because you're saying we shouldn't care what the crowd thinks. But isn't listening to the crowd literally the definition of finding product market fit?
Ah, okay, I see where you're going.
Right. If a founder entirely stops seeking validation and totally stops caring about the response, don't they risk building a product in a vacuum that nobody actually wants?
That's a valid concern.
Where is the line between this toxic permission seeking and just, smart market research?
That is a crucial distinction, and it really comes down to differentiating between the market and the crowd.
Okay, break that down.
The market consists of the people who actually exchange capital for your value.
The buyers.
The buyers. The crowd, on the other hand, consists of observers, peers, critics, and bystanders.
Right.
Market research is putting a minimum viable product in front of a paying demographic and measuring their financial behavior. That is data.
Got it.
Permission seeking is putting a marketing message on social media and measuring the emotional approval of your peers. That is ego.
Oh, wow.
When you blur the line between the two, you end up optimizing your business to be liked rather than optimizing it to solve a problem.
That reframes the entire issue. You're saying this founder wasn't checking their phone for market data at all.
Not at all.
They were checking it for social consensus.
Exactly.
They had taken the literal keys to their internal engine and handed them over to strangers on the internet.
Complete strangers.
People who don't know their profit margins. People who don't know their overhead or their team dynamics or their 5-year vision.
Precisely. And when we analyze the actual numbers with this founder during the strategy session, the reality was stark.
What did the numbers say?
They were playing a game they had already won.
Really?
Yes. The revenue was there, the client success stories were there, the empirical evidence of their competence was undeniable and sitting right there in their CRM.
So they had the proof.
They had all the proof. Yet, emotionally and behaviorally, they were operating like a subordinate.
Why does that happen?
Well, as their competence grew, so did their awareness of the complexities of their field. This created a sort of vacuum of certainty, a high-level imposter syndrome.
Right. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly. So in that vacuum, instead of trusting their own extensive data, they looked outward to the crowd to provide a baseline of certainty.
They needed someone to pat them on the head.
Yes. They shrunk their vast expertise down to fit the narrow, comfortable expectations of the public. They reverted to asking the crowd, is this okay?
Is this post okay? Is this pricing model okay?
Am I allowed to do this?
Is this controversial opinion okay? It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It's totally draining.
But stalling the engine is one thing. What happens when that external validation actually starts steering the car?
That's when it gets dangerous.
Right. Because stalling just means you aren't moving. But what if this permission-seeking behavior fundamentally changes the direction you are running?
It absolutely changes the trajectory.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the illusions of the crowd.
Yes. Let's talk about the internal remote.
We need to examine that concept.
Yeah.
The strategy materials detail a student who was drowning in a sea of shoulds.
A sea of shoulds.
They were filtering every single piece of marketing, every core message, and every product feature through the lens of what their competitors might think.
Here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean darkly ironic.
Oh, it's incredibly ironic.
Because of this competitor lens,
Yeah.
they weren't running their own race anymore. They were running a race designed by people they don't even like.
People they are actively trying to beat.
Think about the profound tragedy of that. You start a business to achieve freedom, autonomy, and impact, right?
Right.
You take on all the risk, the sleepless nights, the massive financial exposure, and within a few years, you have subtly shifted your entire operational framework to appease the hypothetical judgments of your direct rivals.
The irony is severe. We literally hand our personal power over to a nameless, faceless crowd of online critics.
Just hand it over on a silver platter.
And we allow them to crush our actual, tangible business results completely unprompted.
What's unprompted?
They didn't even send an email asking us to tone down our marketing. We just voluntarily surrendered our edge because we imagined they might disapprove.
Because of a ghost.
Yes, that imagination is entirely fabricated. During our session, we executed a pivotal exercise with this founder to break this illusion.
Oh, I want to linger on this moment. Walk me through exactly how that exercise played out.
Okay, so we asked them to actually identify and write down the specific names of the people they were afraid of.
Oh, man.
We handed them a pen and said, "Who is this crowd? Name them."
I imagine sitting at that desk, pen in hand, trying to materialize this massive looming fear into actual human beings is incredibly awkward.
Extremely awkward.
What happens when you force that abstract fear into reality?
The revelation is immediate. And honestly, it is usually quite embarrassing for the founder.
I can imagine.
They sit there for a minute, they write down one name, maybe a former colleague. Then they write down a competitor they follow on social media.
Right.
And then they stop.
That's it.
That's it. They realize the massive judging crowd that has been dictating their entire corporate strategy is actually just a guy named Dave on LinkedIn who hasn't posted in 3 months, and a peer who runs a business with half their revenue.
Wow.
When named, they realized those specific people weren't even paying attention to them.
They don't care.
They were busy running their own businesses or dealing with their own insecurities. The founder was actively sacrificing actual revenue and actual growth for a shadow that simply didn't exist.
They were fighting a ghost. They were letting Dave on LinkedIn act as the shadow CEO of a multi-million-dollar company.
It sounds absurd, but it's happening everywhere.
Let's extrapolate on how this competitor lens waters down marketing in the real world, because I see this everywhere.
All the time.
When you design a message to avoid offending a competitor or to make sure you sound sufficiently, professional to your peers, you actively strip out all the polarizing magnetic elements of your voice.
You lose your hook.
You sand off all the rough edges. But those rough edges are exactly what your ideal client actually grabs onto.
Yes.
When you try to be palatable to a competitor, you simultaneously fail to attract your actual client. You become beige.
And beige doesn't convert.
Beige never converts.
You are optimizing for the wrong variable. You are optimizing for peer approval instead of market penetration.
Right.
Recognizing that the shadow doesn't exist, that the competitors aren't watching, and even if they were, their opinions don't deposit cash into your bank account. That is the first crucial step.
But it's only the first step.
Right. Because recognizing the illusion isn't enough to fix the mechanics. Knowing the ghost isn't real doesn't automatically put the keys back in your hand.
Exactly. So how do you physically reclaim the wheel once you've outsourced that muscle memory for years.
Which brings us to the internal shift, the transition from being a spectator to becoming the commander.
There is a specific script directive from the strategy materials that demands a brutally honest self-audit here.
I love this directive.
It says, look at your last 3 decisions. Did you make them because they were right for your mission or because you were afraid of the feedback?
That question is the dividing line.
It really is.
We must clearly define what personal power actually is in a business context. Personal power is the exact definable moment you stop managing perceptions and start managing your own conviction.
Managing conviction instead of perception.
Yes. We need to introduce the concept of cognitive load here. Think of your daily mental energy as a computer CPU.
Okay, tracking with you.
You only have 100% to allocate. Most entrepreneurs are exhausted not from the actual work of building a business, but because perception management acts as a background application constantly running and draining 80% of their CPU.
80%. Just worrying about what people think.
Right. They are trying to anticipate how their team will react, how the market will react, and how their peers will react.
Constantly refreshing that background app.
And that leaves only 20% of their cognitive capacity for actual strategic execution.
So what does this all mean for the founder listening right now? It means you are acting. You are putting on a performance rather than executing a strategy.
Yes.
You are spending 80% of your energy trying to curate a specific image and then wondering why your operational output is suffering.
And if you are waiting for the world to tap you on the shoulder and tell you that you are finally ready, that you have enough certifications, enough followers, enough tenure to speak with authority, you will be waiting forever. The world is too busy to ordain you. Authority isn't a title you wait for someone to hand down to you.
No, it's not.
It is a decision. It is the decision to close out that background application draining your CPU and stop letting outside noise drive the vehicle.
Which brings us to a core axiom you must internalize today. Authority is taken, never given.
Authority is taken, never given.
That represents a profound identity shift. It is the internal transition from being a spectator, someone sitting in the stands watching your business happen to you, reacting to the market, hoping the crowd cheers, to being the commander on the field who dictates where the operation goes.
The one calling the plays.
Exactly. A commander doesn't ask the opposing team for permission to execute a flanking maneuver.
Just you imagine.
Hey guys, is it okay if we flank you right now? They simply execute based on their conviction in the strategy. They don't check their phone to see if the flanking maneuver got enough likes.
This raises an important question about how we process friction.
Okay, let's talk about friction.
A commander understands that the feedback will come, but the feedback is data, not a directive.
Data, not a directive.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Huge. A spectator internalizes negative feedback as proof they shouldn't have acted. They view it as a personal indictment.
They take it personally.
Right. A commander looks at negative feedback, assesses if it has strategic value, discards the emotional component, and continues advancing.
I want to challenge you, the person listening to this right now. Audit your last 3 major business decisions using this exact framework.
Do the audit.
Maybe it was a hire. Maybe it was a pricing change. Maybe it was pulling the plug on a service that was just draining your resources.
Like, I'll have those.
Did you make those choices because they directly served your ultimate mission? Or did you compromise, delay, or dilute the decision because you were terrified of the feedback?
Be honest with yourself.
Be brutally honest about where the power leak is occurring in your own infrastructure.
Now that the philosophy of this power leak is established, the critical question becomes, how do we execute this shift today in reality?
Right, because theory is excellent, but what do we actually do at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
We have to move from intellectual understanding to tactical execution.
Turning down the volume. Reclaiming your power means waking up to the hard reality that your internal state is your own responsibility.
That's all on you.
No one is coming to save your focus. You have to stop the habit of sticking your finger in the air to check the weather of public opinion before you decide to move your feet.
We need to elaborate on the reality of this situation because it's important not to sell a fantasy here.
True.
Reclaiming your personal power does not mean the noise of the market goes away.
Oh, the noise is always there.
Always. The online critics, the unsolicited advice, the competitors, the algorithms, that noise does not stop.
Never.
The market will always generate friction. Personal power isn't about silencing the entire world. That is an impossible and, frankly, foolish goal.
Right. You drive yourself crazy trying.
It is about finally turning the volume down on the external noise so you can actually hear your own voice again. It is about cognitive rerouting.
Right. You can't control the weather, but you can build a better shelter.
Exactly.
You control your own sensory input. You make choices based purely on the truth of your actual capabilities and the crystal clarity of your goals, rather than what the general consensus deems safe.
Because safe is a trap.
Because as we know, safe is where businesses go to plateau and slowly die.
Making choices based on truth requires immense discipline. When a decision presents itself, your default neural pathway might still route through that perception management center of your brain.
It's a habit.
You have built a habit of seeking permission, and the brain loves habits.
It sure does.
You have to consciously, actively reroute that signal to the conviction management center. You stop asking, how will this look? And you start asking, does this move the needle?
Does this align with my specific truth?
Does this execute the strategy? If the answer is yes, you execute without hesitation.
So here's the daily objective, straight from the strategy source. This is the tactical application of everything we've just discussed.
The homework.
The homework.
Yeah.
Find one decision, just one, right now that you have been delaying because you are worried about the optics.
Just one.
What is the choice you have put off because you don't know how it will be perceived by your peers, your competitors, or the faceless crowd?
You know exactly which decision it is.
Oh, they know.
It's the one that causes a slight tightening in your chest when you think about it, because you know it is necessary, but you have been avoiding the social friction it might cause.
Yep.
It's the email sitting in your draft folder. It's the difficult conversation with the vendor. It's the price increase you've been putting off for 6 months.
Make that specific delayed decision today, not tomorrow, today. Make it based purely on your vision, completely independent of the anticipated feedback. Push the button, send the email, publish the statement, cut the cord. Stop being a subordinate to a boss that doesn't exist.
I want to leave you with one final concept to turn over in your mind as you execute that decision today. We talked earlier about the compound cost of hesitation.
Right. How waiting bleeds your capital and your momentum.
Let's flip that equation.
Okay.
If every decision made out of a desire for external validation leaks a fraction of your power, I want you to imagine the compounding, unstoppable force of a business where every single choice for an entire year is made from pure, unadulterated conviction.
Wow.
Imagine 12 months of zero perception management, 12 months of 100% CPU allocated entirely to strategic execution.
That would be incredible.
What happens to the competitors you used to fear when they are suddenly forced to react to your weather?
If you're ready to stop seeking permission and start taking territory, visit 365 Freedom online to join the community. This has been a 365 Freedom Strategy session.